Welcome all. You can hear Brandon here. I'm going to be hosting you today. We're going to give it just another minute or so as everyone's streaming in here. So hold tight and we'll flip it over in about 60 seconds. Just enough time to get some more hot coffee if you need it. Awesome. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and start rolling everything in. So grab your coffee if you haven't already, a little water, anything else you need. We appreciate y'all joining. Tim, definitely get some water for that cough. I don't want it in my ear or anything else. So, focus. Anyhow, my name is Brandon Young. I lead up ecosystem partnerships, all sorts of fun stuff here at Tabnine. And today we're going to walk you through really what is a joint solution that we've seen a lot of our customers using. So we're just taking what customers have already told us, what they love, what works well for them. And we're going to walk you through both kind of the solution, but also the reasons they're making the solution. Sort of the question behind the question is what we'll warm up with. We'll have some demos. What would love to have, and it looks like we may already have some people rolling in. Please add your comments wherever you may be joining us from. Would be very interested. We'll be looking at those. Certainly makes it a lot more interactive. I'm going to give Tim a hard time while he does demos, so no pressure, Tim. I'll give you a hard time. Tim's going to give me a hard time and add color as I give you some context in terms of what we're looking at. So with that said, let's switch over. I think we are warmed up. We're going to walk a little bit through just some basics of what we're seeing. And so what we've found and what we're hoping to give you some context, you kind of know what you're going to walk through a bit today, is what we've seen with other countries. So a couple things. Landscape of what we're seeing. Why do these kind of fit together? What are the questions that people are asking? Areas of consideration. So I'm very big fan of the notion and the idea that the world is about trade-offs. We tend to live in a world that everyone's like, it's binary. It's a trade-off. A choice has a trade-off. So let's walk through kind of those areas of consideration and differentiation in the area of both generative AI as well as the software development lifecycle. These are closely correlated. We're going to a little bit of how they work together, although that will be probably super obvious to a large number of you. And then a little bit of demo and naturally questions throughout the entire time. So please both ask them and don't hesitate if something's not obvious, or if you're interested to go a little bit deeper down a small rabbit hole. Can't go too far down any rabbit holes, but we're willing to explore a few. So please share those. Want to give a little bit of context, again, sort of landscape of where we're seeing all of this evolve. When you talk around a lot in the world of Tabnine, we talk mostly around generative AI, and historically that's really about code creation. So if you look at that, sort of think, this the magic little red area right here with create, that's writing code. That is true, and that's certainly where this space really started from, and naturally it all starts and is delivered inside of your IDE, and we'll get into why that's most critical, what's important to have that set up, why that's done, in my opinion. I think Tim will weigh in here as well, but in my opinion, oftentimes done incorrectly, inefficiently, and insecurely. But the point being, when you look at development across, these are all the areas that you have to look at it, right? The IDE will live and breathe. It's where developers spend the vast majority of their time. But when we look at it, they're expansive, not just in writing the code, but now we think about, well, does do planning? So upstream into, say, a Jira integration, which Tabnine has. We can talk about downstream into writing your testing, doing your fixing, how you do documentation, explanation, maintenance, and that, I was going to try and do a full circle, but I had a really cool illustration here. And as it turns out, I couldn't make it a circle, or I couldn't get all of the little points in here. Feel free to look at this. Obviously, you can screenshot if you want, but this is to give you a sense right now of where generative AI is currently bringing value throughout the entire software development lifecycle. These are all areas that Tabnine addresses and worked with our customers around. Again, anything from generating fixes to in error real streaming, all explaining the code when you're a new developer, explaining your specific code, and we'll get a bit into the difference between very large models that have seen a lot of data versus specific models that are trained for your use case and what those trade-offs look like. There's certainly ones that are going to continue to evolve, but we have a pretty strong opinion on how that's looking both today and going forward. So to that end, and Lawrence, yeah, thank you for warming us up over there. Everyone share city, state, country, continent, whatever kind of fun you might have. We're in on that. So I wanted to give some context here. We can go deeper, and if anyone is interested into these use cases, I'll be doing a little bit of demo. Tim's going to be messing around a bit with Tabnine, so you'll see some of these in action. Also, look, just for context, we do a number of these Tabnine Lives. If this is your first one, hey, we're so glad to have you. Look at some of the stuff that Adrian and the team have done as well before around use cases, demos, and stuff. So we have a lot of recorded content that you can go through. Most importantly, you can do it 2x, which is great. You cannot 2x me currently. You'll have to wait for the recording to 2x speed me. But moving on, little bit here. So this is really the space that we're in. The area that really plays out, particularly around generative AI and the underpinning, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time on it because it's the substrate or the context upon which a lot of this is going to live, is the notion of the models. So the space around models is critical because the models underpin. When we think about a solution, in this case, if we think about a solution for generative AI in the software development space, the models are part of it. So there's the models part, there's the customization, your data, which is really important, and then you're going to think about the application layer, which is really what you should think of sort of Tabnine as application layer, delivering it inside the IDE you deliver, which is inside of Coder. And Coder gives you choice in which IDE you want to live, because choice is good. And we believe in having your cake and eating it too, which is a theme you're going to kind of see throughout today. What are we looking at here? So let me level set what you're seeing on the right. This is just an evolutionary tree of what are the base level generative AI models that you see. There's open source and closed source. So this is important for a couple of reasons. Open models are usable anywhere. They've evolved faster. I'm biased in this as a former board member of the Linux Foundation. I believe open source wins, so I'll put my bias on the table. But I think that as we go forward, we're seeing these large open source model, be it from a Llama or from Mistral or from Google has some and IBM has some. Each ones are pushing that out. I think those eventually become the default. The other advantage of open source, of course, is you can use it as you would want, right? So wherever that may be, that's going to become more and more important. The second piece you're going to hear a lot about is single versus multimodal models. To be very simple, a large multimodal model can do pictures and it can do text. It can do stuff from Shakespeare. It can do code. There's a plus and minus to that. The larger the model, the more expensive it is to run, and the more less likely there is any way that you could personally run it or customize it. So be aware of that's what you're going to. We're going to be talking, just to really ground you in what we're talking about, what we're using today. We really are going to talk almost all around single purpose built models. And I believe, and Tabnine believes, that's where the industry is going to go for a couple of reasons, which are point 3 and 4. So a single focus model is going to be a couple of things. Always more performant for the task at hand, but much more brittle for something outside a task at hand. So example, a custom model that is trained on your persnickety, very unique and special Java code is not going to be very useful for the uh, AI team doing Python development. If you specialize that model and you get more, but it's much better at the use case around your unique Java code than it is going to be than a general large model. So what do we say? We'll kind of get into this, but today there's obviously going to be a good general model you go grab. And that's going to be, the large models you're seeing here. This is going to be a GPT style model. It's going to be the really great models from Anthropic with Claude, the ones from Cohere with Command R, Command R plus. All those are good general model or big general models. Super useful when you don't know exactly what you're doing. You haven't specialized them yet. You don't have a lot of your own data. Also, those models very, very useful in the situation of where you are comfortable sharing that data back and forth into those models, right? So those models are powerful, but they are black boxes, whether it's a Gemini black box or it's a OpenAI black box. You're sending your data in and getting it out. You have no idea how that sits. And they're very, very large, so you're not going to be able to run them themselves. You're relying on an API. Tabnine enables those, and we'll get into those. The last question sort of is training on what data is used in training and that. And we'll hit some real interesting trade-offs you make there. But that's important in terms of whether that's specializing the model to deliver the suggestions and everything that you would expect, right? So let's keep moving. This is, those are the model space, and these kind of are the context, again, that you sort of think about it. Questions you're going to have to answer. Privacy. This is privacy has to do with what is done with the data you send into that model. Oftentimes, we're going to talk a lot about this. Oftentimes, our customers, and the customers clearly with Coder as well, require significant privacy and control. That is critical where you know how your data is used, where it's sent, sit inside a VPC, have that on-prem where you want it, or air-gapped, right? All the way across that spectrum. So again, both Coder and Tabnine believe in your opportunity to go from anywhere you on that spectrum, from completely secured air-gapped all the way to delivering on the fastest, most efficient way to take advantage of any model on the planet, right? Both available. What I think is really important we're going to talk about today is that choice is critical, that you choose solutions that allow you that choice, right? A large model with a proprietary vendor is going to land on this far right side because all your data is going to live in there with their data center. All your data is going to go there. Critical, that's an option if you're comfortable with it. But if you ever need to get more secure, say you're in Europe, for those of in Europe, ping us. You look at the OpenAI Act, right? Or the AI Act in Europe. That's going to require that you know every bit of code, in your model. It's going to have control over it. There's going to be requirements that, depending on where you are in the world, will continue to evolve. California is going to be passing some stuff likely in the next few days. How are you, as a company that adopts this, or as a user, think about being able to start either very open, using everything and moving to more secure, or just start in the world secure, and as you get more comfortable, maybe to something that move it to a VPC or move it to enabling you're comfortable with a Claude model, that kind of idea. So that's what we're going to wrestle through. The privacy is a spectrum to think about. This other aspect we talked about is personalization. That is taking the data and really making that model and the experience unique to you as a company or as an organization or as a group, even as an individual. But again, probably most of this is talking about a company or a group. This is really important because the coding standards that you use as a company or as a team aren't going to be the same as the ones that are used in general, fully permissive open source, right? How do you get there? You need to be able to customize those models and personalize those. And last is protected. We talked a little bit, this ties into it. Do you know what's in your model? Not only what is your data that goes into it, but what data went in to train it. That's going to be required, for example, on the AI Act. It will be required that you know every bit of code that went into the model, and none of it can be copyrighted. We can answer that. Coder and Tabnine can offer that, deliver that for you. You may be in another place that you're not in the EU and you want, again, that flexibility. We can offer that as well, but both sides of the spectrum, super important. We hit a little bit of this around the privacy. So I kind of probably did this a little too early. You get the idea. Software licensing, super important. That's the EU Act. Data retention. Who holds your data? Where's it kept? Is it used as a part of a model? Can you audit it? Those are all questions you need to ask. This matters both in terms of the data and the systems that are running your development environments, your IDE, as well as the generative AI plugins and models that work in conjunction with one another. Cool. So our view on this also comes down to then encryption. How do you deliver this in a seamless way? This is something when we look at this, this is where a Tabnine is a model with a plugin into whichever ID you want. So I'll highlight this for Tim, and Tim can obviously jump in. But what's really important is when we look at the IDE that you want to use, clearly some people are big fans of VS Code, but obviously JetBrains crushes it. You've got Eclipse, and you've got a lot of other environments. And let's be honest, any of us that have been in the space for a while, it's the soup du jour of the next coolest IDE or next thing delivered, right? So again, are you prepared and flexible to deliver the most secure solution in a way that developers are super happy, get exactly what they need, fastest time to get up and running, but also in an environment that isn't so locked down that you can't adjust that as you go?
You just described what we term the developer golden path, and that's something that we talk about all the time.
Good.
It's a way to, in a secure and governable manner, give the developers everything they want and need, right?
Yep.
And give them options and give them choice.
Yep. Awesome. So this context, you're looking at this, right? Front-end coder, this is really you delivered to the developer with the right level of resources, right level of depth of compute. So obviously by doing this way, you can put massive compute to it, or you can be super efficient, however you want to set that up. Tim's going to show you all the little tweaks you can make to your environment. That's a ton of fun. Add whatever linting, whatever other tooling you want to it. Super, super useful. The last one, and then we'll start moving. This is just a flexibility in terms of where you deploy this. So are you, do you need to run it in a fully air-gapped solution where we have to sneaker net stuff onto your OpenShift cluster? The answer is yes, and yes, we have. And yes, there's definitely reasons that needs to be an option. I'm guessing that's not the vast majority of you, but some of you may have that. A lot of you, vast majority, you're probably living in a world where most of your data or most of your environments are VPC oriented. And on that question, do you want to be fully tied? Are you, if you're a full Azure shop, maybe you're okay with a Codespaces, GitHub, everything all in a Microsoft Azure world. We think you should want flexibility, but that's obviously an option, but very tightly coupled to that platform. Tabnine and Coder are not at all. Again, we can deploy anywhere. Both of us just require a Kubernetes cluster and some basic compute, and you're off and running. And again, that can run across from a great Tanzu VMware cluster to an OCI cluster, to a GCP cluster, to an AWS, even to DigitalOcean. So any of those are all places that you can deploy, run, and deliver, a really good solution. So a little bit now shifting a little bit in terms of the eyeballs. Where do your eyeballs live? Your eyeballs are going to live in that IDE. This is really the place that you're going to get highlighted, and this is where the demo is a ton of fun. This is Coder's value proposition. This is why we have ended up so many times with customers, because they want the security of running their own models and customizing them on a generative AI side. And they want to be able to couple and deliver that to the developers they need. So they may have some developers that are working on front-end code that's wide open. They still want that developer to get an instant ID when they start with all the plugins and everything else they need. And they want to match that to maybe a Claude 3.5 that can go after all sorts of scene open source. But then on the back end, they're a large bank and they have 4,000 developers working on their trading application that's Python based. I can assure you that that code shall never cross the internet into anywhere else. So they need that running completely, probably maybe even air gapped with full control, but they want those developers to be able to get instant access, have a great experience, be off and running, every other plugin, everything else they need. And they need to tie that to a custom model that Tabnine's running. And you can do both inside of the same organization with the same level, with security control, all the above. So that's really a lot of what we're looking at here. And this is why it's interesting to developer. Obviously, quick retooling, zero maintenance, quick high performance. Don't have to worry about having buying the coolest, newest laptop. You get the full, as much resourcing as you would need, no matter where that's going. And shared resources, so it's also more efficient, right? So all those are aspects that matter both to the developer, awesome experience, and the admin that's like, I've got to bring on 3,000 developers, or I'm bringing in a new consultant. So I'm bringing in a Capgemini or a Cognizant, and they have some great resources. I want to give them access, but I need maximum control on that world. So to that end, I think I'm going to skip right there. We'll get to this for fun, and I want to switch it just briefly over to Tim. Tim, give me 2 seconds. Do my stop screen, and then it's yours.
Okay.
Good. So we could spend a little bit of time about the customization. There's a ton here for those of you that have not played in the generative AI world. Taking something from a general model to specific personalized for you. There's a whole bunch of tooling, capabilities, ways we go about doing it, and we can dig a bit more into that. But we want to show you a little bit of the front entry, how you would get started, how will you get to use them, and then we'll turn it over from there. So, Tim, looks like you're up and running, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Brandon. That was great. It's funny how you guys have the different sort of brackets or different sort of levels of security. I just did a webinar on Tuesday on deploying Coder in secure environments and had a very similar layout in the different models, and kind of giving the audience a chance to find out where they land and how they can improve one way or the other. It was pretty interesting. The link actually for that is in the one slide that Brandon went through. So if you get the deck, you'll have the link to that webinar if you're interested in seeing how to deploy a CDE in an offline data center. So Coder and Tabnine. So what is Coder? Coder, it's a cloud development environment. So what does that do? In short, it's a platform that provides your developers with three things that are really great. Predefined workspaces that are decoupled from their hardware. So you don't have to worry about somebody checking out your code and leaving it on their laptop, and then the laptop goes missing or whatever, what have you. Maybe is it a contractor? Did they encrypt it? Who knows? Whatever. Everything stays on the cloud instance or the on-prem instance of where you have your workspaces defined. It gives each developer a comprehensive and consistent set of tooling. Whatever's defined for the project that they're working on, they'll get immediately the second they start up the workspace. There's no need for them to install anything. Everything's configurable. Everything's you can parameterize everything. So, you can even have an option to where you give tell each developer, have a Git repo with all your dot files, all your configs, things like that. Put that in as a parameter. So whenever they start a workspace, they have their shell environment, they have their IDE environment, whatever. It's really cool. It's really fast, and you'll see that when we get to the demo. And then it also provides them with high performance resources. So as Brandon had mentioned earlier, this stuff it's not running on your laptop. Everything's on the cloud instance. So if you have, somebody who needs 4 GPU cores and 16 CPU cores and 32 gigs of RAM, you can give that to them while they're working on a Chromebook or an iPad. It doesn't matter. It's all you can run everything through the browser, and away you go. Now, if you are using a laptop with a more standard desktop OS and you have a local IDE installed, you can also connect remotely to the workspace as a backend as well. So it's very flexible. It meets the developers where they are, where they like to work. One of the reasons we have these two different options is you have your sort of core developers. They have their tastes, their flavors. They have their own IDE. They like to run on their desktop, and this suits them perfectly. On the other side, where you have data analysts, less technical users who they may not know or may not care about what IDE there is. They don't want to configure their machine. They don't want to do these sorts of things. You can give them a browser-based IDE, and they're in, and they're set up immediately, ready to go. Another great advantage of that is, as Brandon mentioned, if you bring on a Capgemini and now overnight you need to enable 5,000 developers, you just create an org in your in your single sign-on, and have those accounts in there, and they're ready to go. So what does this look like in a diagram? So here we have a group of developers. Each has a Tabnine workspace. And let's say they have a requirement. They need to start working on React. So in a normal, sort of the old way of doing things, each person is going to install React however they see fit. Now, you might have some teams that have team-based scripting, abstractions, things like that. Those are great, but not everybody across the entire organization is going to have this exact same thing. So now you have multiple installations of React and multiple different things to take care of. Coder solves this by simply, the developer teams ask the platform admins who are maintaining Coder, they say, hey, we have this requirement, right? We need a workspace that has Tabnine and React in it. They create a template, they upload it, they push it out, it goes out, each developer gets an update, and now next time they restart their workspaces, they all have the exact revision and the exact point release and the exact same install method for the tooling that they had requested. So, and you can expand this as far as you want. I mean, obviously most workspaces have a lot more than 2 things in them, but you can have, you can even expand this to hardware, right? Like say certain developers need more CPU. You can give them a template that enables them to, with higher CPU core limits, more memory, more GPU cores, things like that, more storage, whatever, right? It's all defined. And we'll take a look at that after the UX demo.
So one thing on this that I'll say, like, nuance is great, is when you're also putting, when you push out that workspace, it's both React and it would be any other, code that might be related to a company. So if that group is working on that code, that's Tabnine actually uses that to customize and deliver. There's a term called a RAG that we would use to give you very customized suggestions. By using this pattern, that data that the new developer wouldn't know to add in, you can put all of that into the workspace, and Tabnine is going to immediately then customize the suggestions going back to the new developer based off of the code you just also put in there. So these two work again at many levels really, really well together. So sorry, Tim, just noting.
We'll see that in the demo too.
Yeah.
So, yep. So just to sort of visualize this one more way. So, say we have a developer, they're working on a laptop, they have a workspace, and this is where everything goes, everything lives. It's their compute, it's their IDE, it's their plugins, it's their data, it's everything. So, what happens if they go home or they get a new laptop or whatever? They literally just reconnect to the CDE and they are right back in business. There's zero retooling. So you can imagine all the different use cases for something like this. Like I said, a lost device, a new device, somebody working from home, they didn't bring their laptop with them, setting up contractors, or jumping, you might have like a principal developer who's on 6 different projects, and now this person is not going to have to retool their development environment every time they need to, do whatever they need to do on one project or the other. They could have a different workspace for each project.
Yep. And developer, just hitting on this, yes, Eclipse for both of us. So very strong plugin for Tabnine with Eclipse, again, because we're not tied. We don't think of the world as a single IDE. There's someone else in the market that does. I will leave that unnamed. Coder does not either, right? We are big fans of Eclipse, of JetBrains, we'll support, of course, all the VS Code, VS stuff that exists, but just Drifton, thanks for asking. But yes, a strong plugin for Tabnine into Eclipse, and Coder definitely supports Eclipse.
Yep. So let's just take a look real quick at the developer experience. This is my Coder installation that I use on a daily basis here in technical marketing. I have a bunch of different templates running, or a bunch of different workspaces running. You can see they're all there. I could start them all up and do demonstrations in any of them, but we're going to start from square one. So we want to create a new, let's say we get assigned to this new project that uses Tabnine. And what is that going to look like? We don't have a workspace for it already. We simply go in, we say create workspace. We can see there's tons of different templates that we can pick. We pick Gen AI Tabnine, and we'll just say, if I could type, we'll just call it demo. I can pick how many CPU cores. I can pick how many gigabytes of home disk I need, things like that. These are just limits on Kubernetes. You're not actually going to give somebody 4 gigs of memory right away. It'll just be an upper limit. Anyways, I'll just create the workspace. And you can see this, our workspaces are powered by Terraform templates. You can see this some Terraform running. This Terraform runs at the control plane. You don't have to have any Terraform binaries or anything installed on your workstation. This is all at the control plane. Right now, what it's doing is it's provisioning a Kubernetes deployment that is going to have my workspace in it, and it came up pretty quick. So now the deployment's up and running, and you can see there's some code zipping by. And what this does, this is a view of what happens at runtime, right? We launched our container. We're doing some installs. We're installing Code Server, which is a web-based implementation of VS Code. That's another open source project from Coder. And it is also syncing up it's also installing Tabnine, and then it's also syncing up our source code for the project. I just have it downloading Coder, which is what we work on a daily basis. So this is a really simple workspace. We have Code Server and we have a terminal. You can define however you want to connect. You can put your JetBrains, you can put buttons up there for JetBrains, for Eclipse, for all these other things. It doesn't, it's fine. I just chose the simplest one possible. So let's take a look at this. Let me zoom in a few times. Oh, that did zoom in. Okay. So now, did it automatically log me into? All right, so I go in. It's going to want me to sign into Tabnine. It's a really simple process. You go through. I'm already logged in at my web browser. I'm going to just grab the token that it gives me, and then I'll come back here. And in the command palette, there's a Tabnine sign in, and you say, okay. And then you paste your token in, and you are ready to go. So now you can see this is web-based. This is 0 config on the user side, 0. To give somebody something like this, you wouldn't have to install anything on their machine. You can see I have some source code open. I have a terminal here. You can see my desktop. I'm running on a Mac. If I check this out, you can see I'm running on a Linux box, and this thing has all the tools and all of the source code and everything that I need. If you see, we created this with a couple of clicks. We already have our source code for our project there, and all the tooling that we would need to build that project is already installed. So it's pretty straightforward. It gets the new developers in a position to make a commit like that. So what if they're really new and they don't know anything about what's going on here, and they have to learn about some things? What you can do is you can open whatever file is open here is immediately in the context for the Tabnine plugin. And you can see that we have, we started in Claude. We can also pick a couple of different models if we want to do it. We'll just stick with Claude for now. So we're just going to ask it. We're going to say what, list the APIs defined in api.ts. So now it knows, since this file's open, that it's gonna scan through here, and it's gonna just start chugging out a list of all the APIs there. Now this takes a while, so let's say, okay, we'll stop it. We'll say that's enough. Let's say update organization. Let's find out what that's about. What does update organization? And it should go right back to that same there. It's in that same API method. It's looking at it. It show you a sample of the code and things like that. So now let's say, okay, say I wanted to, somebody was asking me about this. So, like you could send them you could copy and paste this right into your docs, right into an email, whatever. And then let's say if we wanted to generate some code for it, say you're a testing engineer. So let's say
And so, yeah, well, like we're on the far right. If we think of that, or I should do this far right because I'm backwards. So I'm doing right on my right. We're now on the most open because we're using Claude 3.5. Again, you'll notice you could choose any one of those models out, which is unique because Tabnine and again Coder, we're not tied. We're not a cloud. We don't care about driving more consumption of whatever your random model is. We're going to give you the best models out there, and it's going to be then against your code set. So this is super like right out of the box. You'll notice nothing here has been configured. So we're on the most open, least configured version. And as you go, you could get this super detailed as you go down different levels of customization from, this is doing some basic RAG, but you can get to a vector database, you get to a graph database, you get to model customization. You can keep moving down that line, but this is just should give you an idea, like out of the box, this is just exactly how the two would work with no context setting.
Yeah. And important to note at that as well, zero installation on the the client side too. This is all browser based. So I'm going to ask it to write me a unit test for this API, and this is where the power of this stuff really comes in. I mean, because these are the sort of things that developers don't want to do.
Tim writes unit tests every time he writes code. He writes unit tests, just like all of you on the call.
Yes.
I know. All right, great unit tests every time. It's the first question.
And you could also ask it. You could also ask it to write you some technical documentation for the API as well.
That's good because Tim likes that too.
Yeah, here's a really cool thing about this too. So it made me a unit test in TypeScript. So I was like, rewrite that in Python. Let's say I'm a Python guy, and it will say, sure, there we go. This will do the exact same thing, but in the language that you asked me. If it goes, I don't know. It's thinking. But anyway, I think maybe I ran out of luck with the live demo gods there. Who knows? So how does this all happen? As I mentioned, when the workspace was spinning up, we used Terraform to define these workspaces, and it's really simple once you dig into it. Maybe we'll come back to this. Let's take a look back at our Coder installation. So you don't have to know Terraform to admin Coder, but you just have to be able to figure out like if you know any declarative language or any declarative formatting type thing, you're gonna be able to figure this out pretty quick. So if we look at what this is, seriously a absolute basic template that comes out of our pre-canned ones. I have a couple of things in here that are commented out, but other than that, it's pretty much standard. You can see it uses a couple of different Terraform providers. It uses we're running on Kubernetes, so we're calling a Kubernetes provider. We're using Coder. We're obviously calling our own Coder provider, but this is all boilerplate except for the startup script that is in there. So what I did in this startup script, this is just a couple of lines of bash that just do some runtime installations for me. It installs code server. It starts code server. It installs the extension or makes sure the extension's installed. And then it does a git pull or clone on my source code. So now if I shut this workspace down and restart it, it's going to redo all this stuff again at runtime. So you have to make sure it's idempotent. That's the only worry you have there. Other ways you can get things into your workspace is just by baking it into the image. So say you have a Docker file and you have all your languages, all your tooling, everything baked in that image. You tell Coder to pull that image rather than the base one. And away you go. You could have a base image that has all the tools that all of your devs need, and then you could have templates that pull those that have the refinements for each team in the runtime installation. So you can sort of think of it as a layer as you go. And this is really straightforward. Like I said, to customize a Coder workspace, you can do it with Bash. You just have to know where to type it. That's it. You can do it with Docker files, and you just have to say, hey, instead of pulling the coder, the regular coder image, just pull the image that I made. You can use any registry you want, even private registries. You can do pull secrets and things like that in here if you need that. So it's not too tough. And you saw at the beginning when I chose how many CPUs I wanted, and I told you, well, we really don't give you that many CPUs. By default in Kubernetes, Coder will give you a quarter of CPU and a half gig of RAM. But what you choose in that UI is the limit. So basically, I chose 4 and 4. So that means when my deployment starts up, I'm at a quarter CPU and a half a gig of RAM, but I can burst up to 4 and 4. So it's really straightforward. If you have a platform engineering team already, they probably have the skills to run Coder. And the cool thing about Coder is it literally runs anywhere that you can imagine. If you can get a Linux-based OS running, you can get Coder running there, the control plane. And then you can also one of the really cool value props of Coder is we have more than one OS for workspaces. We support all the major OSs for workspaces as well. A lot of our competitors do not. But yeah, it's a really cool way of doing things. So now let's go back to our UI. Did it ever catch up? It never did. Oh well.
Just hit reset. It's good. You can. Quick just note on this one. I didn't want to answer your question. So limited context window on the model RAG. So Tabnine operates in a couple different ways, and happy to go in deeper on this, but Tabnine operates, the default is going to build a RAG for you personally. So said another way, you would have a RAG that is different for you, Iden, that's different for me, Brandon, based off of the data in your development environment. So in this case, whatever you're looking at, it will build a custom RAG for you and a different one for me. That's the simplest level RAG. You can also build a higher level RAG, which would be customization on a larger code base. Think you have a golden repo, you have, this would be where you would use very well with Coder. You'd build a custom model with a custom RAG where you've pre-trained a model, everything for a team and around a development on that side. In terms of how we handle the context window for everyone on context window is how much data a model can use to give you an answer back. That varies based on the model you choose. So a Claude 3.5 is going to have a different window than a Gemini, would different than a GPT, would be different than a smaller custom model for you. Tabnine takes advantage, and that's kind of what's built in. That's a lot of the hard work on the back end of giving you the best suggestion based off the constraints that are constantly evolving. So hope that understands a little bit of how this works. If you want to go super deep into this, into the customization, into how we do RAGs and context windows, more than happy to do that. We have a couple sessions out there, and Iden, looks like you possibly may be actually in Israel. Tabnine, we have a large team in Israel. More than happy to go deeper, so don't hesitate to just reach out to us. Happy to share that with you. But hopefully for everyone, context-wise, the short answer is we use context in a lot of different ways at a lot of different levels, depending on how much data you have given and is in your environment and able to deliver that. And you can adjust it as you want, back to take and use as much or as little of that as you want. Sorry, Tim, keep going. I just thought I'd grab that question. Any other good? That's a great question. So ask others.
No, I was done actually. So I just, if you're going to jump back on the slide, show slide 18 or start on slide 18. I was going to jump there, but
sure. 1 second. Let me
So you're going to go through the rest of your slides.
I think I'm pretty good. Let me see if I have anything else. Let's see. Anything else that's yeah, no, I think I could do this. 1 sec. Slide shows up, and I'll get good at this in a second. I think this answers in maybe a smidge. Present. Share screen. Yes, I agree. I will grab that one, and we'll see. if that one. So, and I can, Tim, if you have something else you wanted to, but I'm using this, I didn't kind of to answer your question. The customization, the personalization goes from left to right, and it gets more as you go to the right. And each level you can get more customized. So it's going to have basic context is what you're seeing here with a little bit of connection. That would be the next step into your Jira instance, into other data sets you're bringing. Coaching is then moving to, hey, I understand exactly all my code and everything, and that's now I'm a new developer. I'm getting full coaching from a full code base. It's fully customized model with all of the right plugins and everything running. Cool, right? That's great. And then you can even go as far as, a place that comes up for a lot of our customers are, I've got a COBOL data set. I've got a code set or a code language that no one else is seeing. I'm doing chip manufacturing. I'm doing embedded systems. There's a lot, as it turns out, for context, for fun. Up until recently, the largest number of lines of code written every year was actually still COBOL. It may now be Java, but it was for years, up until like maybe 5 years ago, was COBOL, at least that I'm aware of. So that's really important. And you go up into the right into the customization. So a lot of what we're seeing for fun tools right now is really good for that 20-30% front end JavaScript React development. And that's a great, hey, grab a Claude, run after it, might work. But there's a huge tail and a whole bunch of other stuff that's super important for modernization, modernization, moving for a new version of Java, moving to a completely different language, moving from COBOL to Java. That's a whole area that this personalization, the coaching, customization becomes super critical, because that doesn't exist in any of the models that exist in the rest of the world. It's your data, and that's your goals, and it requires that you kind of you go down this road of personalization. So, Tim, anything else? I think we've come right sort of end of time. Any last things, Tim, you want to add? You are on mute, so just for context.
Sorry, lost my window there. Yeah, just check out Coder. Check out github.com/Coder. We have a lot of other repos besides just our main product. We release a ton of open source software that is sort of supporting and sort of around the CDE space. There's all kind of cool stuff in there. So
yeah. Tim and I so appreciate you all spending a little time with us this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you're joining from. This will be published live again. If you want someone else to see it, it's 2x speed. I'm more fun at 2x than I am 1x, from what I've been told. And any questions, let us know. We're both very reachable. Both companies would love to jump in if there's any questions you all have. Both companies have great places to get started. Tabnine free trial, Coder free trials, like jump that's all super available. So, and last question, I'll just close this out. The answer is yes. So Tabnine can connect with a project management tool, Jira, full transparency, because you could find if you wanted. Atlassian is a big investor in Tabnine for this reason specifically. So when we think about a heterodox or development space that's Jira and Eclipse and isn't for example an all Microsoft shop, that's an area that Tabnine invests. Clearly Coder invests, but yes, you can connect that to your Jira, your Confluence instances, your Bitbucket. So if you're an Atlassian customer, this is a space that we work very, very closely with them. So excited on that side. Yes. So yes, short answer, yes. That's and this goes that personalization. So we'll leave it out here. This is the conversation you're looking at, is if there's a problem in a new development's been resolved, that's where you need to go down the personalization, because Tabnine and any generative AI solution in this case needs to be customized or personalized to your use case, because if you go to Claude 3.5, it's powerful, but it's thinking a whole different set of code, not related to the world as in return of your opinion, your coaching. We need to do it this way so that continues to be perpetuated. So the short answer is this is exactly why you go down the direction of some basic personalization. That's why these models, we believe, as I said, trending from very large models to personalized models. The personalized and focused models will be exactly for the use case you're highlighting here. So, yeah. Hope that helps. Y'all, I so appreciate the time. And hey, thanks for joining us from Barcelona in your evening with us, or late afternoon. Tim, as always, you and I will probably be chatting in the next week with other customers. So I'll talk to you soon. And for all you, thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks.